You mentioned someone like Blink 182. Is this an important thing for Audius to do in the future? Is to start signing these big artists? Is that, or get their content on your platform? Is this important, or is that the old school record label Web 2.0 mentality where we're thinking we got to sign the big ones like Tidal did back in the day in order to give it credibility? Or is that still important for Audius?
It's a really good question. So I think the idea of content rights more broadly are becoming far more liquid than they ever used to be. And what I mean by that is like everything from these big fat catalog deals you've probably seen where folks are like Bruce Springsteen and others are selling rights to catalog in exchange for these like massive sums of money, right? But ownership of catalog and catalog assets, by that I mean the copyrights associated with content, is decentralizing right now, and that has nothing to do with crypto. It's just there's this gold rush of folks being able to underwrite debt against catalog and then being able to structure deals to buy it out, because you can buy out something because catalog has this very predictable revenue stream created by streaming. You can underwrite debt against it very easily. So you see these deals levered up like 6, 7, 60, 70%, sorry, debt and like 30, 40% equity to buy out catalog and then service the debt. It's like the, typical kind of like private equity model, right? Yeah. But that way that filters all the way down to the individual artist is that they too have more liquidity associated with their catalog rights than they used to. It used to be that there was only one source of liquidity around that, which was a label, right? So if I am going to make a new album, I could pre-sell ownership or effectively like my copyrights in that album to a label in exchange for an advance that lets me actually make the album. And the label's taking on a ton of risk in that, right? The vast majority of these deals do not recoup. The ones that do recoup so many times over that they kind of pay for the rest. It's actually very similar to like venture as a business model, right? Where they're making these very broad bets and recouping them. So anyway, I share all that to say with respect to Audius, I think there is certainly an opportunity to, via helping artists make more money from their content, reduce the necessity for advances and these types of things. But I actually think the music industry is aware of that, not just with respect to Audius, but this broader shift around catalog liquidity and saying we're not going to be as sort of advance dependent as we once were. And similarly to what I had previously described around, touring, these other pieces of revenue becoming a larger share of the pie. There's been this evolution towards the so-called 360 deal in recorded music, where rather than a record label just owning rights to the music and then trying to monetize them as best they can, and with the artist earning a small share of that monetization, they're saying, hey, why don't we capture like a percentage holistically across everything you do as an artist and be more full service as your partner, right? So they handle marketing, they handle like all kinds of stuff. So I actually think that relationship's pretty symbiotic and probably not going away. But I think we're in this period of refragmentation, both around ownership of rights and around how these folks are able to kind of work with partners like that, right? And that's a really interesting kind of thing. So the music industry has spent the last 20 years consolidating into 3 major players. I think now we're kind of refragmenting that, where through folks buying up catalog and then finding new ways to monetize that catalog and then competing against one another around how well they can monetize these catalog assets, combined with folks who are offering more and more services to the artist. But the labels have been really quite smart and clever through this whole transition, staying on top of it. So I don't think they're going away. I think it's more like the market is expanding, and that's creating space for more players to be playing around this same arena. Audius, I think as a community, I can't speak to what they'll do in the future, because I honestly don't know. But my opinion is that our focus should remain on monetizing rights and monetizing artist-fan relationships. To the extent that Audius is useful for artists to make more money and be less dependent on advances, that's cool and good, right? But I think there's a different segment of the market that's going to start to target that more directly, right? Audius, I think, wants or should remain neutral, right? Because if the network were starting to sign artists, for example, or do things like that, now there's an incentive to boost those artists over the folks who aren't signed. And then you fall into the same kind of, playing favorites mess that has played out like everywhere else. So I think to maintain neutrality, it's kind of important not to head down that path. But Web3 more generally is going to have, I think, a significant impact on how deals like that are structured and organized.